Hey guys, after I read your really great feedback after Monday, I decided that instead of replying to each of your comments individually, I would just make a video and kind of address some of the questions and concerns that came up in a lot of your responses, and hopefully this will clear some things up. But as always, you can email me or message me on Slack if you need any more information. Okay? So first, I kind of wanted just to address some general positive, happy things before we get into all the complaints. My grandparents are both doing better. There they are at their 50th anniversary last year. Manga is pretty much recovered, and Poddad is getting better every day. So thank you all for your thoughts and for checking in on them. Also, my back is getting better. I can almost function like a normal human. So baby steps, we're getting there. Thank you for asking, right? I also wanted to just really quickly mention that teaching is my favorite thing because I love working with students. You guys have been fantastic this semester. I'm so excited to have you in my class. And I just wanted to thank you for being awesome students, right? One person in particular asked if Juliet could come to class one day. Usually I do bring her to class at least once, but since we're only in class one day a week, I feel like I have to really make the most of every minute that we're there, right? But I'm planning something where maybe I'll bring her to campus one day on a Wednesday or Friday and just tell you where I'll be so you can all come pet Juliet and play with her for a minute. I know she would love that, all right? So let's get into some of the nitty gritty stuff, all right? Some questions about Essay 1. Some people thought that the content was maybe a little too personal right off the bat, and I do understand that. But you didn't have to write anything really incriminating or too sensitive, right? So most people enjoyed the topic. So if you didn't like it, keep that in mind for the assessment at the end of the semester, because I don't actually write the prompts, my boss does. So you could let her know that. All right. Somebody asked what value I would have written about, which is actually a really thoughtful question. I think maybe my most deeply held personal value is responsibility, right? And to me, that means kind of taking care of the things that nobody else should have to take care of except you, and pushing yourself to always be better so that you can sort of expand and take on more responsibility. So that's probably what I would have written about. And then somebody asked about my favorite moments from grading P1, which is such a great question. I graded like 80 papers, but the ones that stood out to me were the ones that talked a lot about the people in your life, right? So people who wrote about like their mom or dad or their best friends from high school, those were the ones that really stuck out because I could tell they were so heartfelt, right? So essays with a lot of personal connections were just personally my favorite to read. Okay, let's see. Okay, you guys had lots to say, which is always great. I am big on feedback, both like in the writing sense, like peer review and as if rubrics, but also just I always want to be better as a teacher. So anything that you can say that will help me get there, I'm open to, right? So I just wanted to go over some of these. So one of the things that you mentioned was getting feedback earlier in the writing process, and I think that's a really great thing to ask for. And so because there are so many of you, it's really hard for me to go in and give each of you personalized comments on like your pre-write and your rough draft. But something I think I'll try doing is including rubrics for those smaller assignments, right? So on the pre-write, maybe I'll include a rubric that tells how well you did on your like your thesis statement and like the organization that you're planning to do, something like that, that'll give you an idea what direction to head in without me having to type out 80 individualized comments. Somebody totally called me out for being late on everything, and I really do apologize. I appreciate you calling me out. I'm going to really strive to have everything posted for the week on Sunday, right? And that's just on me, right? And we'll kind of circle back to that idea later in the video, okay? A couple of people mentioned the Canvas organization, and this is not something I say very often, but it kind of just is what it is. At this point, there's not a whole lot I can do about the Canvas page, right? So that's something, honestly, you just gotta kind of learn and deal with. Sorry, okay? peer review was a nightmare in this unit, and that's not your fault, okay? I usually do peer review in person, so trying to do it online was just chaos. Thank you for your patience. We had some trouble with people not posting on time, or maybe giving too vague feedback. So I'm going to work on that for the next unit. I haven't quite figured out the solution, but I do know it's a problem. So hang in there with me, and I think unit 2 will go much smoother. All right. And I've actually got a plan to help counteract some of those maybe zeros that you got for peer review. So we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. But basically, just hang in there with peer review. It's a really important process, but it's not easy to pull off online. So I'm trying. Okay. So because peer review was such a dumpster fire, I'm actually thinking about offering an extra credit opportunity to counteract one of those missing peer reviews, right? So there were 2 peer review grades. If you missed both of them, you can make one of them up. If you only missed one, awesome, this will get you both, right? But I think what I'm going to do is put together a reflection activity, so similar to the discussion board that you did for this question, but something where you can really dig deep and think about your work in unit 1 and how you could have done better, right? Because if you missed the peer review, that means you could have been on top of that due date a little better. So I want you to think about things that you could work on as a student, and then I want it to be collaborative so that you can talk to each other. So hang in there. I'll have that done and posted probably Friday, right? A lot of you just said stuff like, this is really difficult for me and I'm doing my best. And I understand that. I do. I'm not heartless. And so I've done a lot of soul searching, and I have always been very strict about late work because I think as a college student, it's your responsibility. I'm big on that value, to turn things in on time. But also, you guys have been super gracious with me when I'm late on stuff. So I think it's only fair that I extend that to you. So I may regret this, but what I've decided to do is on all the homework, so the journals, the discussion boards, everything that's not a major essay, I will accept those up to 1 week after the due date for half credit, right? So if the journal is due Wednesday at midnight, you have until the next Wednesday to turn it in for a 50 instead of 100, right? That way you're not losing all the points, right? And that gives you a little bit of wiggle room, because I know life is kind of crazy right now, right? And then the other thing that a surprising amount of you mentioned was struggling to keep up with the due dates because they are not on the calendar in Canvas. And that has never come up in any of the classes I've taught. So again, you asked, I listened. So I am totally willing to try that. I will make sure that I use the calendar feature on Canvas so that all the due dates are listed so you know what to expect. But I need you to kind of work with me too and figure out a way to stay on top of the due dates just as responsible adults, right? When I was in college, not that long ago, I used some homework app where you go in and you put all of your assignments and the due dates, and it'll kind of list them out like in order of what's due next and tell you how early you should start it. So definitely on your smartphone, just search like homework planners and see if you can figure out a system that works for you, because it shouldn't always be up to your professor to use the Canvas calendar feature. Okay, so we'll work on that together. All right. Oh my goodness, so many questions. So some just like general class organization. Yes, it will always be a week of pre-write, a week of rough draft, a week of drafting the complete draft, and then peer review. You'll always get an as-if rubric, and those will be done way faster in the next unit, hopefully, as long as no other relatives get deathly ill and I don't seriously injure myself again. You'll have complete drafts graded much faster. And then somebody asked, just kind of in general, if every unit will be this difficult, and the answer is yes. I would even argue that they might get a little more difficult because you'll have to do some extra research, and there will be a little more work on your part. So if this unit felt like it was too much for you, you may need to adjust your schedule and allow a little more time to work on this class. Okay. So just kind of like a whole ton of feedback about communication. And so some of you asked about like meeting in person. And again, as long as I don't like fall and break my neck, we will be back to in-person class on Monday. And then on Wednesdays and Fridays, what I've decided to do is just keep an open Zoom room during our class time, right? So if you are in my 2:15 class, I'll post a link to a Zoom meeting at about 2:10, and you can just log on, and I'll be there until, 50 minutes after, right? So 3:05. And you can just get on and ask questions, or you can log on and work during our class time, just to kind of have some accountability, right? But I think that'll be really useful, especially once we get into some of the more serious work in Unit 2, right? And as far as being unsure about my expectations, I agree that I could do better about explaining things, always, who couldn't? But also, it's kind of up to you to ask when you don't understand something. Office hours are not a joke. I don't hold office hours because I don't have anything better to do on Tuesdays. I do that to help you. So if something isn't clear, it's kind of your responsibility to get on your phone or get on your laptop and ask, all right? So I will offer more opportunities to ask me questions, but you have to do the work of actually getting the help that you need, right? So we'll work on that together, okay? Some of you asked questions about Project 2, and hopefully after you watch the rhetorical listening video that I posted earlier today, that'll make more sense. But I wanted to cover a couple of these, right? So you will only be looking at one text, but you can incorporate other sources as background information. Please don't pick a book unless it's a very short book. There's just no way you could cover it all, okay? Somebody asked about like a good text versus a bad text. And like I say in the video, you want to steer clear of things that are like fact and information based and stick with things that are more opinion based. And then in this paper, I don't want your opinion at all. You'll get to do that next semester, okay? Oh my goodness. Few things at the end. These were just kind of some questions that didn't fit anywhere, but I wanted to address them because they were kind of fun. Right? Somebody asked about writer's block and how to get over that. And I highly suggest just doing a free write. So if you are stuck and don't know where to begin drafting a paper, set a timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and until the timer goes off, just write everything that comes to your mind that's anywhere near your topic, right? Even if you get off on tangents or you have to kind of rein yourself back in, just write literally anything that comes to mind. And then read back through it and mark little nuggets that you're like, oh, okay, this is a good idea, right? And you'll stumble upon starting points, right? So if you aren't sure where to start, just write. I know, corny, I know, I'm sorry. And then finally, if you could do anything in the world right now, what would it be? I would love to go to the beach. I didn't get to go on any sort of vacation this year, and I love the beach. I went to Florida last year over summer break and was really hoping to go back this year. But someday when the world is no longer on fire, I'm gonna go lay on the beach. All right. So if you got questions, email me or message me on Slack, and I look forward to hearing from you.